Oh, hello. So, I'm still at my mom's. We will be back to our regularly scheduled furniture flipping program next week. But for now, I am making some risers. So, see the cardboard? That is the shape that I took off of the tier table that we did last week. And I'm just using it to kind of do a general shaping on the sides of these risers. So the board I'm currently working on is just a piece of wood I found outside. It's crazy. They have a whole bunch of wood at their house from doing the remodel and a bunch of other things. So I have a lot to work with. And then this piece right here, I did 2 boards and I clamped them and glued them together to get the right width, at least somewhere along a reasonable size that I would want to use as a riser. They're both 17 inches long, but the width varies. So I'm not too terribly concerned about the sizing of the boards, just as long as I think I could get decor on them and make them look good. And then I just take the jigsaw and cut out the shape that I like. And so I'm just giving a light sanding to this one. This one has a really pretty, already weathered, worn look to it. So I don't want to take all that off, but I do want to get off anything that's kind of splintered up or that doesn't feel very nice. Now I'm not making it too perfect because I'm going to use a ton of poly on it and then also wax. So that's going to help fill out anything and make it feel really smooth and like something that you'd want to have in your house. I do make sure that the edges where I've cut off the ends are rounded out so that they're not sharp or jagged. And don't worry, I did get rid of the hideous yellow paint on the bottom. Also with the sander. Okay, so now I'm taking some wood glue and I'm attaching the feet. The feet are actually from an old staircase somebody ripped apart. So I've just cut them up into little sections that I think look good with whatever piece of riser board I'm using, and those are the legs that I use. I do kind of like to line them up like this. And then after the glue hasn't really set but has been sitting for just a hot minute, I will then flip it over and then I can weight it down to make sure it's getting a really good suction on there. Okay, so now I'm trying to match the old color of the thicker board because I really like that. So I'm taking some Iron Gate and some Woodland Harbor in Chalk Mountain and I'm turning that into a wash, and it is like a perfect match for that. So that's what I recommend if you want kind of that old weathered gray brown look. It's a really good one. And it dries a little bit lighter than what it looks like on the board here. And then you just wipe it back once you get it on there and let it dry. And then I decided I wanted to fancy these up so they weren't just wooden boards on some legs. So I'm just using this stencil to give it a little something. And then if you want to add a little bit of dry brushing, because I'm using Mellow White, and I just kind of added a few really, really dry brush strokes over the wood because this one wasn't really weathered like the other one. And I really wanted these to look, old. So and then for the larger board, man, I just could not make up my mind. I had to cut a lot of this out because it was just boring to watch, but I tried doing my decor stamps on them and they weren't coming out the way that I liked. I tried it, so many different times to get something that looked good on it, and I couldn't. And I don't know if it's because the wood was not perfectly flat, but I don't know, I hated the way it was turning out, so I wiped this off, about 5 to 10 times because it just wasn't something, you know, when you do something that you're not super proud of, you can't sell it. So anyways, I ended up wiping all of this back, and I ended up going with the stencil on this one as well. But this one was really fun because it was a thicker board, so I could kind of wrap the stencil around the edges, and I felt like that was kind of a fun, not just having a stencil on top, but to have it kind of swirl around. And oh man, it was just cool looking. So I really like the way that it turned out, but yeah, it took me a while to get there. So I mean, don't be afraid to just wipe stuff off. It's just paint. It'll come off. At the very least, it's adding a little more layers to the look of age on the piece, so it ended up fine. I mean, but what an easy project this is. And both of these boards are already gone. Like, they're already, one went to Florida, which I thought was just insane, that somebody would buy something of mine and I'd have to ship it to Florida, but I thought that was super cool. The thicker one was a little harder to sell via shipping. I ended up doing that one locally because it was so heavy, and you know, the heavier items go for more. So I'm just using this. My parents had this Minwax semi-gloss poly at their house, and since I obviously didn't bring my entire shop with me, I just kind of used what I had. It worked. It's not my favorite, but I knew I was going to go over it with wax, so it would take down a lot of the sheen. And I also hit it with a little bit of sandpaper too. I don't really like the semi-gloss look. And I typically use my Chalk Mountain Poly, which brings me great joy. But again, this works. You use what you have. And I just sealed both the boards, bottom and top. I wanted to make sure everything was, you know, really good to go into somebody's home. And these are obviously decor risers. They're not meant for cutting anything on or using for food. They won't be marketed as such. And so the larger board got a white wax, and then the smaller board got a gray wax, just because I felt like the white wax on the smaller one is made of cedar, and it has quite a bit of like that orangey pink color. And I felt like if I added white wax to it, it would kind of look pink hued, which I didn't want. And the gray would kind of combat that. So that's why I did them both different. But it still aged them and they still looked awesome. So both customers are happy with their pieces. And that's really all that I'm concerned about. But I just wanted to show these to you guys because they're super easy. They sold very quickly. I didn't think that they would. I mean, I just didn't know. This was my first time making them, and I didn't really know what was going to happen, but I think it's super fun. It was a really easy project, and it worked out well. And they stage up so nicely. Like, I'm going to make one for myself just for my staging stuff. So thanks so much for watching. Like I said, next week we'll be back to our normal furniture flipping adventures. And I hope you guys had a great 4th of July, and I will see you next week.